I'll take this spacious room. Susanna declared with a joyful laugh, surrounded by the scent of fresh lumber in the new room. I paused from unpacking. She wants this room? What on earth is Susanna talking about? I'm taking the corner room over here. When even Clayton starts saying things like that, I became completely lost. Cross me, and you're on your own with caregiving. Clayton declared, smirking and laughing mockingly at me. But my mind was still in turmoil. Wait, whose house are we talking about? Feeling out of sync with Clayton and his wife, I asked that question. Huh? The two of them looked bewildered, and I finally understood the situation. I see. That's what this is about. This could be a good opportunity to teach Clayton and his wife, who have been taking advantage of me for so long, a lesson. I must not miss this chance. I was the only one feeling a fighting spirit. My name is Mary. I'm turning 65 this year. My husband passed away from pancreatic cancer 5 years ago. By the time the cancer was discovered, it was too late, and he passed away a few months later. The suddenness of it all left me unable to keep up emotionally, and for a while, I lived like a shell of a person, merely eating, going to the bathroom, and showering to end each day. Lately, my legs have been getting weaker, and living alone has become a bit of a struggle. It was my eldest son, Clayton, who breathed life into my wilted existence. That year, Clayton was going to get married to my daughter-in-law, Susanna, and, "We want to live with you," he said to me. I was surprised when Clayton suddenly brought up the idea of living together. Until now, Clayton had been living in a company house provided by the local bank he works for. I thought it was natural for two people to set up a new home when they got married. But contrary to my expectations, Clayton and his wife wanted to live with me. I had not yet met Susanna and didn't know what kind of person she was. But for me, who had lost the love of my life and felt a hole in my heart, Clayton's offer to live together felt like a consolation from God. "Of course, we'll contribute financially to the household." "Oh, I'm fine with it." Seeing me nod without hesitation, Clayton smiled contentedly. "Got it. Then I'll bring Susanna over next week. Looking forward to it." With those words, Clayton left. Clayton could be a bit rough around the edges, but I figured it was just a rebellious phase in front of his own parent. To me, he was still my dear child. I felt as though my lonely life had suddenly brightened up. A week later, as promised, Clayton and his wife came to our house. Excuse us for intruding. Despite it being our first meeting, I was surprised by Susanna's loud footsteps as she entered. She was supposed to be 30, the same age as Clayton, but she wore a skirt shorter than knee-length and had pink dyed hair. Her nails were also very flashy. "Nice to meet you. You're Susanna, right?" "Yeah, that's me. But what's with this house? It's kind of old and cramped." I was taken aback when, upon entering, she immediately started criticizing my house without proper greetings. "Right, but it's better than nothing, so just bear with it." Yeah. "We want to live with you." Clayton, too, had changed completely from when he said a week ago, and his casual manner of speaking now had me utterly confused. However, since we were going to start living together with Clayton and his wife, I didn't want to start off on the wrong foot, so I had them sit down and serve them coffee. "Do you work, Susanna?" "Work? As if I'd bother with something that troublesome." "I see. So, Mary, do you work?" "No, I'm a housewife." "Wow, so you're living off your late husband's pension? Must be nice." "Living the easy life, aren't you?" Despite being in the same position as a housewife. Must be nice. I couldn't believe Susanna was mocking me with a sarcastic tone. I do receive a widow's pension, but that's the extent of my income. far from living a luxurious life. I'm barely managing to get by every day. The idea of living an easy life is nothing but a distant dream. Anyway, Susanna, how about we divide up the household chores? Since we're both housewives, maybe we can split them evenly. I wanted to change the subject, so I suggested this to Susanna. Living together means supporting each other in our daily lives. I assumed that since Clayton would be working and contributing financially, Susanna would help with the household chores. However, Susanna clearly frowned at my suggestion. What? Share chores? No way. Mary, you should do all of that. I don't know anything about this house. Besides, I'm busy hanging out with friends. Susanna bluntly stated this, her sharp gaze as if pushing all responsibilities onto me. Then, could you help out whenever you can, please? Unable to make a strong request to Susanna, whom I'd just met today, the conversation about household chores ended with me resigning to take on the tasks. Susanna smiled smugly, as if she had won. I was disheartened, dreading the upcoming life with them. The cohabitation with the three of us was far from the life I had envisioned with my daughter-in-law. First, Clayton, "I'm busy with work," would say, and not come home until late at night. Susanna, true to her initial declaration, did not do any household chores. I thought she could at least manage to take out the trash, but she seemed to have trouble waking up in the morning and couldn't manage to get it out on time. I reluctantly ended up doing all the household chores for the three of us. Before moving in together, I felt saved, thinking that the loneliness of not having my husband around would be filled, but I regretted it, thinking that being alone might have been easier. Susanna not only avoided household chores, but also spent her days hanging out outside. Given their flashy appearance, I had suspected they might be troublemakers, but to think they were out causing mischief every day, that was indeed a good position? Not at all. Whenever Susanna came home, she always carried shopping bags from well-known brands. It's a brand that sells only top-quality products, far beyond what I could afford on my pension. "How did you manage to buy these?" I asked her. "With my allowance, obviously." She scoffed. However, I knew Clayton's salary wasn't high enough to afford multiple high-end brands so frequently. If she had saved her allowance to buy them, I could understand, but buying brand-name items almost every day didn't leave room for saving. I wondered where she could be getting so much money. And there was another unexpected event for me. It was that Clayton wasn't contributing financially to the household. About a month after we started living together, I checked with the bank, thinking Clayton might have transferred money from his salary account to our household account by now, but there was no money from Clayton. Before we started living together, Clayton had said, "I'll contribute financially to the household." I remember him saying something along those lines. Well, it's only the first month. Maybe he's just late or forgot. With that thought, I didn't dwell on it and went home. But as 2 months, then 3 months passed, Clayton still hadn't contributed financially. Eventually, I decided I had to tell Clayton that we couldn't cover the expenses for 3 people on my pension alone. "Could you please contribute a little to the household expenses? We're running short on money for groceries." "Oh, sorry, I forgot. I'll start contributing next month." Hearing I forgot, I felt relieved and believed he would start contributing the following month. However, Clayton's words turned out to be just an excuse, like something you'd say to placate a child, and he never actually transferred any money. I asked Clayton repeatedly, but he often came home drunk and seemed to forget what I had told him. Or maybe he was pretending to forget. Either way, once I realized Clayton wouldn't contribute, I had no choice but to start working part-time. I found a job at a local flower shop. Working again, after a long time, was enjoyable, but the long hours were tough on my body, now over 60 years old. Despite the pressure of having to earn enough for 3 people weighing heavily on me, I pushed through. I worked 6 to 8 hours a day, almost like a full-time job, and then I'd come home to prepare dinner for the 3 of us. Susanna, as ever, showed no signs of helping out with the housework, even after I started working. Instead, she would throw tantrums over the meals I made. "What is this? It's disgusting. I wanted stew. Make it again." Like a small child flipping her plate and demanding. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. Time and again, she'd find fault with my cooking to suit her mood. I was filled with anger and sadness, but realized arguing with the unreasonable Susanna was futile, so I silently remade the meals. I longed to escape this slave-like existence. This can't go on like this. My instincts screamed that this couldn't go on. Desperate for a diversion, I asked the flower shop manager, "Can you think of any hobbies I could do at home?" I asked her. The manager, Rachel, was a beautiful woman in her 40s who looked like she must have been stunning in her 20s. She was a perfect fit for the flower shop. "How about trying your hand at crafting? You can use the flowers that are going to be thrown away if you'd like." Encouraged by Rachel, I started making accessories with flowers. I enjoyed crafting immensely. Being naturally dexterous, I quickly got the hang of it and made pieces that could stand up to those sold in stores. Rachel, knowledgeable as she was, even showed me a website where I could sell my handmade creations. I listed my accessories on the sales website as a mere hobby. But within a week, orders started rolling in, and I began earning an income from my crafts. Delighted by the joy of earning from my hobby, I devoted all my free time to making more accessories. Seeing my dedication, Susanna mocked. "Huh, what's this job? People actually buy this stuff?" But I paid her no mind, perhaps finding it uninteresting when I don't respond. "You know, Mary, you're like a useless old person, a burden on society." She resorted to making harassing comments, yet I chose not to react even to that. No matter what Susanna said, I was no longer afraid. After 5 years of making accessories, I turned 65. Recently, I bought a house nearby. I loved the old house I was living in because of the memories with my husband, but it was an old house and had started to show its age in many places. So I was satisfied with purchasing a new home. Just as I was contemplating living there with Clayton and his wife, Susanna peeked over my shoulder at the floor plan I was holding. "Wow, is this a new house? What, are we moving?" Susanna exclaimed with an excitement I had never heard from her before. I always found looking at floor plans enjoyable, but I never expected Susanna's mood to lift this much. Seeing her usually angry face light up. "Yes, that's right." "Wow, that's amazing. It's so spacious." Susanna was utterly engrossed in the floor plan, forgetting herself. It took me 5 years of living together to see this childlike side of her for the first time. The following days were busy with buying new furniture for the house and packing up for the move. Clayton and Susanna continued their usual routine, paying no mind to the bustling preparations. On the moving day, I had asked acquaintances to help with the large items, so I left the house with just a suitcase. "The new house is spacious, huh?" "It is. I saw the floor plan." Clayton and his wife seemed excited to see the new place, both of them more animated than usual. I brought Clayton and his wife to the new house. The stylish black exterior walls and wooden door, along with the spacious garden. "Wow! Wow!" made them both exclaim. The garden was a particular detail I insisted on for my love of gardening. Entering the house, the expansive rooms filled me with satisfaction. Choosing a single-story home and having handrails installed was the right decision considering my weak legs. "Incredible! It's so spacious and beautiful." "Better than I expected." As they explored the house with a sense of ownership, Lighting up with excitement, I began to unpack. From this moment on, I began to feel a sense of discomfort. Eventually, after taking a look around the room, the two of them came back to where I was. "I'm taking this big room," Susanna exclaimed joyfully in the new room filled with the scent of fresh lumber. I stopped what I was doing, puzzled. She's taking this room? What on earth is Susanna talking about? "I'm claiming the corner room." When even Clayton joined in, I became utterly confused. "Better not to argue, or no caregiving for you," Clayton declared, smirking and laughing mockingly at me. But my mind was still in turmoil. Wait, whose house are we talking about? Feeling out of sync with Clayton and his wife, I asked that question. "Huh?" Their bewildered expressions finally made me realize the situation. I see. That's what this is about. This could be a good opportunity to teach Clayton and his wife, who have been taking advantage of me for so long, a lesson. I must not miss this chance. I felt a surge of determination. This house? I bought it for myself. I explained to Clayton and his wife, standing frozen in front of me, why I bought the house. I talked about the old house's wear and tear, my desire to end our living arrangement, and how I thought it would be more comfortable for Clayton and Susanna to live on their own without me. "Ending our living arrangement? What are you talking about?" "Exactly. We weren't told about this. I thought we were going to live here." The two were shocked by my sudden revelation. To me, it was inconceivable how Clayton and his wife could assume the cohabitation would continue indefinitely. I had never once said they would live in this new house with me. Had it been the case, I would have certainly discussed the layout with them. The fact that they assumed they could also live here without any discussions was astonishing. I'm sorry if this wasn't communicated clearly, but I thought if I told you the details, you might insist on coming along. And since I was only packing my things, I assumed you had realized that. I thought you were just coming to see my new place today. After all, Susanna, you hate everything I cook and the way I clean, right? I never imagined you'd want to continue living with me. I said this with heavy sarcasm. And Susanna was at a loss for words. "But this doesn't make sense. How could you afford such a house? I've searched the house up and down and never found any money." "Oh, crap." Clayton's face turned pale as he realized he had said too much. I knew Clayton had been taking money from the household funds. I kept silent, wondering when he would reflect on his actions. If he had shown any sign of remorse, I might have discussed the new house with him. But since Clayton not only failed to contribute financially, but also used the household money for himself, I felt no obligation to hold back. I earned the money myself. It started about 5 years ago when I began making accessories as a hobby, remember? Rachel from the flower shop suggested it. At first, I just sold a few things on a sales website, but then a well-known influencer featured my accessories on social media. Sales skyrocketed, and my income increased significantly. Yes, I was able to buy the house because of my success in selling accessories. Of course, accessory sales alone wouldn't have been enough to buy a house. I received offers from various apparel and accessory companies, participated in tie-up projects, and got my products advertised. The significant sum I could never have earned from part-time work alone was what I wanted to use for a new house, driven by the toxic cohabitation with Clayton and his wife. That's a lie. There's no way you can make money like that. Susanna was in denial, facing the reality. Susanna had hardly worked at all since she turned 35 this year. Despite that, she's been splurging on luxury brands and spending recklessly. It was no surprise she didn't understand how to earn money. I know about you, Susanna. You dropped out of school, had a falling out with your parents, and ran away from home, right? I heard it from your parents. You had nowhere to live and lied about your age to work in a bar, which is problematic itself. but I can sympathize. However, after quitting your job, you just hung out, got involved with bad company, and kept buying luxury items. And then you even started shoplifting. What? Susanna was shocked that I would bring up her shoplifting. I began to suspect Susanna of shoplifting about a year after we started living together. I had thought it strange from the beginning that she was always adorned with luxury items. Given Clayton's salary, it was impossible for them to afford such luxury brands. My first suspicion was shoplifting. One afternoon when Susanna went out, I followed her discreetly and, as expected, caught her shoplifting. I could have confronted her on the spot, but knowing Susanna, she would have likely talked her way out of it. Instead, I captured evidence of her shoplifting on my phone, thinking I might go to the police if she didn't change her ways. I have evidence, look. I showed them the video, and Susanna's face stiffened further. With the evidence in front of her, she had nothing to say and just hung her head in defeat. And Clayton, stealing from the bank where you work is the lowest of the low. You must have been in debt, right? How do you know about that? Clayton started to tremble. To them, I must have seemed like a police officer confronting them with their crimes. Rachel's daughter, my flower shop manager, started working at your company this year, right in your department. She saw you pocketing money from customers. She's new and didn't want to accuse a senior without being sure, so she kept quiet. But considering you've been giving Susanna a hefty allowance while not contributing to our household and even stealing from it, it's not hard to believe. Although this is based on hearsay and I have no proof, considering that Clayton was giving Susanna a substantial allowance every month, not contributing any money to the household, and even stealing from the family finances, it seemed likely to be true. That ungrateful, after all I've done for her? Clayton was shaking with anger, presumably at Rachel's daughter. Hearing his admission, I seized the moment to assert myself. After all you've done for her? You probably thought you were the most important person in this house, right? Acting superior at work and looking down on others. Unfortunately, that won't work with me. This house is a prime example. I earned my own money and bought this house with it. You're not superior. And while I'm not claiming to be superior either, I refuse to have my hard-earned home taken over by you two. Leave immediately. Startled by my outburst, they screamed and ran out of the house. I let out a sigh of relief. From tomorrow, I won't have to see those two anymore. Just the thought lightened my heart. Later, I reported Clayton and Susanna's crimes to the police. The police quickly investigated the two of them. In fact, there was hardly any need for an investigation. Susanna's shoplifting and Clayton's theft were immediately evident upon reviewing the security camera footage. Watching my son and his wife being taken away by the police didn't stir any emotion in me. I could only wish them luck. Initially, I was touched by Clayton and his wife's offer to live together, thinking they wanted to comfort me. However, living with their reckless behavior only built up stress. In hindsight, their proposal to cohabitate was more likely motivated by a desire to have me take care of the household chores while they lived comfortably. Being rid of their sarcastic remarks and financial exploitation has left me feeling refreshed and liberated. Even if Clayton and Susanna were released by the police, they would likely be overwhelmed by the need to repay their accumulated debts. Given their inability to manage household tasks, their marriage is bound to fail. But I am determined not to offer them any assistance again. I've vowed to live a life completely separate from Clayton and his wife. While continuing my part-time job at the flower shop, I've devoted even more energy to my accessory making. When I revealed that the flowers used in my accessories came from the flower shop where I worked, an unprecedented number of customers started to visit. Responding to the demand from customers who wanted to use flowers as parts for their own accessories, we began selling flowers specifically for accessory making. Rachel suggested, If your accessory business is doing so well, it's okay to focus solely on that. However, I declined her offer. After all, it was Rachel who introduced me to this hobby in the first place. I believe that if using the flower shop's flowers in my accessories can also benefit the shop, then that's the best outcome. Moving forward, I plan to continue balancing work and my hobby as I embark on this new chapter of my life.